The sun had dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in shades of orange and purple. The streets of Maplewood, a quiet suburban neighborhood, were mostly empty except for the occasional car passing by. It was one of those evenings where everything seemed calm, almost too calm. But beneath the surface, tension simmered like a pot ready to boil over. Officer Ryan Carter sat in his patrol car, parked near the corner of Elm Street. His uniform was crisp, his badge gleaming under the dim streetlights. To some, he might have looked like any other cop doing his job, but those who knew him better understood there was something off about him. Ryan wasn't just strict. He carried an air of arrogance that made people uneasy. He often muttered complaints about these neighborhoods whenever he was assigned to patrol areas with predominantly Black or Hispanic residents. Tonight, he felt especially agitated. Ryan tapped his fingers on the steering wheel as he scanned the area. His eyes landed on a figure walking slowly down the sidewalk, a young woman carrying 2 grocery bags. She wore a simple blue dress and sneakers, her hair tied back neatly into a bun. Her name was Maya Johnson, though Ryan didn't know that yet. All he saw was a Black woman, pregnant and struggling slightly with her load. Maya had been having a long day. Between work and running errands, she was exhausted. Still, she managed a small smile as she walked home, thinking about how nice it would feel to finally sit down and rest. She lived only a few blocks away from the store, so driving hadn't seemed worth it. As she approached the corner where Ryan's car idled, she noticed him staring at her through the windshield. For a moment, their eyes met, and Maya felt a chill run down her spine. There was something cold and unwelcoming in his gaze. When Maya reached the curb, she paused briefly to shift the weight of the bags in her arms. That's when disaster struck. Or rather, something trivial happened that shouldn't have mattered at all. One of the apples she'd bought rolled out of its bag and landed softly on the pavement near Ryan's car. Maya sighed quietly, more annoyed than anything else. She glanced around, hoping no one had seen her clumsiness. Then, without hesitation, she bent down slightly to retrieve the apple. But before she could pick it up, Ryan stepped out of his vehicle. His heavy boots clunked against the asphalt as he approached her. Maya straightened up, clutching her bags tightly. "Can I help you?" she asked politely, trying to mask her growing unease. "What do you think you're doing?" Ryan demanded, his voice sharp and accusatory. "I dropped an apple," Maya replied, gesturing toward the fruit on the ground. "I'm just picking it up." "This is public property," Ryan snapped, ignoring her explanation. "You can't just litter wherever you want." Maya blinked, taken aback by his tone. "It fell accidentally. I'll clean it up right now." She tried to move forward, but Ryan blocked her path. "Hold on," he said, raising a hand to stop her. "Do you have ID? Let me see your ID." Confusion washed over Maya's face. "Why do you need my ID? I told you. I'm just grabbing the apple." Ryan's jaw tightened. "Listen, lady, don't make this harder than it needs to be. Show me your ID or we're going to have a problem." A knot formed in Maya's stomach. She could feel her heart pounding faster. Pregnant women weren't supposed to experience stress like this, especially not during their 3rd trimester, but arguing with a police officer wasn't exactly safe either. Reluctantly, she shifted the bags to one arm and reached into her purse with the other. Her hands trembled slightly as she pulled out her driver's license and handed it to him. Ryan examined the card closely, as if searching for some hidden clue. After what felt like an eternity, he handed it back to her. "Okay, fine," he said, gruffly. "Now get that apple and get out of here." Relieved, Maya crouched down again to grab the apple. Just as she stood up, however, Ryan spoke once more. "Wait a second. You've got receipts, right? Proof you paid for these groceries?" Maya froze. This was ridiculous. Was he seriously questioning whether she stole food? She pointed to the bags in her arms. "These are clearly marked from the store. Do you really need proof?" Ryan stepped closer, his expression darkening. "Answer the question." Tears welled up in Maya's eyes. She couldn't believe this was happening. Why was he targeting her? What had she done wrong? Unable to bear the confrontation any longer, she turned to leave, muttering under her breath, "I'll deal with this later." But Ryan wasn't finished. In a flash, he grabbed her arm, yanking her backward. The grocery bags slipped from her grasp, spilling their contents onto the ground. Apples rolled everywhere, cans clattered, and bread tumbled out of its wrapper. Maya cried out in pain and fear, her free hand instinctively moving to cradle her. "Belly, don't walk away from me," Ryan shouted, his grip tightening. Before Maya could respond, he shoved her hard, sending her sprawling onto the concrete. The impact knocked the wind out of her, leaving her gasping for breath. Tears streamed down her face as she lay there, stunned and terrified. Across the street, a neighbor named Lisa had been watching the scene unfold from her window. Horrified, she quickly grabbed her phone and began recording. Through the lens of her camera, she captured Ryan towering over Maya, yelling obscenities while she struggled to sit up. Lisa's hand shook as she filmed, unsure of what to do next. Should she call for help, intervene herself, or simply document the injustice unfolding before her eyes? After what felt like an eternity, Ryan finally stormed back to his car, slamming. The door shut behind him. Without another word, he sped off, leaving Maya alone on the sidewalk surrounded by scattered groceries. Passers-by started to gather, offering assistance and asking if she needed medical attention. Lisa rushed outside, her phone still in hand, and helped Maya to her feet. "Are you okay?" Lisa asked gently, placing a comforting arm around Maya's shoulders. "That was completely unacceptable. We need to report him." Maya nodded weakly, still trying to process what had just happened. Her body ached, and her mind raced with questions. Would anyone believe her? Would justice ever come? For now, all she wanted was to go home and forget this nightmare, but deep down she knew it wouldn't be that easy. As Lisa escorted Maya back to her apartment, she uploaded the video to social media, adding a caption that read, "This is not okay. Stand with Maya Johnson." Within minutes, the clip went viral, sparking outrage across the community. People demanded answers, calling for accountability and reform. Little did they know, this incident would set off a chain reaction that would change lives forever, including Ryan's. Unaware of the storm brewing online, Ryan returned to the precinct, smug and unbothered. To him, the encounter with Maya was just another routine interaction, nothing special. He filled out his report casually, omitting key details and spinning the story to make himself look justified. Satisfied with his work, he clocked out for the night and headed to his favorite bar, eager to unwind with a cold drink. Meanwhile, Maya called her husband, Marcus, tears streaming down her face as she recounted the events of the evening. Marcus listened in stunned silence, his blood boiling with anger. By the time he arrived home, he had already begun formulating a plan. This wasn't just about Maya anymore. It was about standing up against systemic oppression and ensuring that no one else had to endure such cruelty. And so, as the night wore on, two very different paths emerged. One led to denial and arrogance, while the other pointed toward resilience and retribution. Neither Ryan nor Marcus realized it yet, but their fates were now intertwined, setting the stage for a confrontation that neither would soon forget. The next morning, the video of Officer Ryan Carter's brutal treatment of Maya Johnson had spread like wildfire. Social media platforms buzzed with outrage as people shared Lisa's footage over and over again. Comments flooded in from all corners of the internet, some expressing shock, others calling for justice, and many recounting their own experiences of mistreatment by law enforcement. The hashtag #ToYorderJusticeForMaya began trending within hours, drawing national attention to what had happened on that quiet suburban street. Marcus Johnson woke up early, his mind racing after hearing Maya's tearful account of the previous night. He sat at the kitchen table nursing a cup of coffee while scrolling through his phone. Each clip and comment he saw only fueled the anger simmering inside him. Maya rested on the couch nearby, her face pale and drawn. She hadn't slept much, plagued by thoughts of the incident and the fear of what might happen next. "Marcus," she said softly, breaking the silence, "I don't want you doing anything reckless. I just want this whole thing to go away." Marcus looked up from his phone, his expression unreadable. "It's not going to go away, Maya. Not unless we make sure it doesn't happen again. To you or anyone else." Maya sighed, knowing there was no point arguing with him when he got like this. Marcus wasn't the type to sit idly by while someone hurt the people he loved. Still, she worried about what lengths he might go to in order to protect her. "Just promise me you won't do anything illegal," she pleaded. "I'm not promising anything," Marcus replied firmly. Then, seeing the concern in her eyes, he softened his tone. "But I'll be careful. You have my word." Unbeknownst to Maya, Marcus had already started making plans. After tucking her back into bed and ensuring she was comfortable, he retreated to their home office. There, he opened an old laptop that hadn't been used in years. Dust covered its surface, but once powered on, it revealed a trove of information and contacts from Marcus's past life, a life he rarely spoke about. Years ago, before settling down with Maya, Marcus had worked as a private security contractor overseas. He specialized in surveillance, risk assessment, and covert operations. It was a world far removed from the peaceful existence he now cherished, but one he knew how to navigate expertly. Though he had left that life behind, some skills never faded and neither did certain connections. Using encrypted messaging apps, Marcus reached out to a few trusted former colleagues. Within hours, he received responses confirming they could help gather intel on Ryan Carter. Surveillance footage, daily routines, even personal habits. All of it would soon be at Marcus's disposal. As he waited for updates, he spent the rest of the day researching Ryan himself, combing through public records and news articles. What he found painted a troubling picture. Ryan had a history of complaints filed against him, though none had resulted in disciplinary action. Witnesses described him as aggressive and prone to using excessive force, especially in minority communities. Yet somehow, he always managed to escape accountability, shielded by his badge and the system that supported him. Meanwhile, the fallout from the viral video continued to escalate. Protesters gathered outside the police station, holding signs that read, "Protect and serve who?" and "No justice, no peace." Local news stations aired interviews with residents who shared stories of similar encounters with Ryan and other officers. Public pressure mounted, forcing city officials to issue statements condemning the incident and promising a thorough investigation. Ryan, however, remained oblivious to the growing storm around him. That evening, he headed to his usual bar, a dimly lit dive tucked away in a part of town frequented by off-duty cops. The bartender greeted him warmly, sliding a beer across the counter without needing to ask. Ryan took a long sip, leaning back in his chair as he surveyed the room. To him, the entire situation was laughable. "They're blowing this way out of proportion," Ryan muttered to a fellow officer sitting nearby. "All I did was enforce the rules. If she didn't want trouble, she shouldn't have acted suspicious." His colleague nodded sympathetically, though privately he wondered if Ryan had gone too far this time. Still, loyalty among cops ran deep, and no one wanted to be the first to speak out against their own. As the night wore on, Ryan's bravado grew. He regaled the group with exaggerated tales of his exploits, portraying himself as a misunderstood hero battling crime in a thankless job. "People these days can't handle authority," he declared, raising his glass. "They need to learn respect." Across the room, unnoticed by Ryan, Marcus observed silently. He had arrived earlier, blending seamlessly into the crowd. Dressed casually in jeans and a hoodie, he sipped a soda while jotting notes on a napkin. Every boastful story Ryan told provided another piece of the puzzle Marcus was assembling. By the end of the night, he had a clearer picture of the man he intended to take down, not physically but in every other way possible. Back at home, Marcus reviewed the surveillance data his contacts had sent over. They included detailed maps of Ryan's movements, timestamps of his activities, and even snippets of conversations recorded via hidden microphones. One particularly damning exchange revealed Ryan bragging about planting evidence to secure arrests. It was exactly the kind of leverage Marcus needed. Over the next few days, Marcus began implementing phase 1 of his plan. He orchestrated small, unsettling incidents designed to unsettle Ryan without tipping him off. A series of anonymous phone calls woke Ryan in the middle of the night, each caller hanging up after delivering cryptic warnings. Strange noises echoed through his apartment building late at night. Footsteps, creaking floorboards, faint whispers. Even his car alarm went off repeatedly, despite showing no signs of tampering. At first, Ryan dismissed these occurrences as coincidences, but as they persisted, his confidence began to waver. He became increasingly paranoid, jumping at shadows and double-checking locks multiple times a day. His colleagues noticed the change in him. His usual swagger gave way to irritability and anxiety. When questioned, Ryan brushed it off as stress from the recent controversy, but doubt lingered in their minds. One afternoon, Marcus delivered the final blow in this psychological game. He slipped a fake internal affairs letter under Ryan's desk at the precinct. The document accused Ryan of misconduct and announced an impending investigation based on new evidence. Though entirely fabricated, it planted a seed of fear that quickly took root. By the time Ryan realized something was seriously wrong, it was too late. Marcus had already laid the groundwork for the next phase of his operation. With Ryan distracted and destabilized, Marcus prepared to strike where it hurt most, not physically but professionally and emotionally. Justice, he believed, wasn't just about punishment. It was about dismantling the power structures that allowed people like Ryan to thrive unchecked. As the days passed, Maya watched Marcus work quietly from the sidelines. She still harbored reservations about his methods, but she couldn't deny the sense of relief that came with seeing Ryan unravel. For the first time since the incident, she felt hopeful, not because revenge was being served, but because someone was finally holding Ryan accountable for his actions. And so, as tensions escalated both publicly and privately, the stage was set for a confrontation that would leave Ryan questioning everything he thought he knew about control, authority, and consequence. Marcus, meanwhile, remained resolute, driven by a singular purpose: to ensure that no one else ever suffered the way Maya had. The battle lines had been drawn and neither side was backing down. The days following the fake internal affairs letter were some of the hardest in Ryan Carter's life. Every morning he woke up with a sense of dread, unsure of what new trouble awaited him. His nights were restless, filled with tossing and turning, as his mind replayed every suspicious noise, every cryptic phone call, and every unsettling detail from the past week. The paranoia had taken hold of him completely, gnawing at his confidence and leaving him feeling exposed. At the police station, Ryan tried to maintain his usual tough exterior, but cracks were beginning to show. He snapped at coworkers over minor issues, avoided eye contact during meetings, and spent hours obsessively checking his emails for updates about the supposed investigation. His colleagues noticed the change but chalked it up to stress. After all, being accused of misconduct wasn't something anyone would take lightly. Still, there was a part of them that couldn't help but wonder if maybe Ryan deserved what was coming his way. Meanwhile, Marcus Johnson continued working behind the scenes, carefully orchestrating events to push Ryan closer to breaking point. He knew better than to rush things. Patience was key when dismantling someone's sense of security. Each move he made was calculated, designed not just to scare Ryan but to make him question everything around him, including himself. One evening, Marcus decided it was time to escalate his efforts. Using surveillance footage provided by his contacts, he identified Ryan's favorite bar, a dingy place where off-duty cops often gathered. It was the perfect spot to plant seeds of doubt among people Ryan trusted most. Dressed casually in jeans and a plain jacket, Marcus entered the bar unnoticed. He found a seat at the far end of the room, ordering a soda while observing Ryan from afar. Ryan sat with a group of fellow officers, laughing loudly as he recounted stories of his heroic exploits on the job. His voice carried across the room, dripping with arrogance. Marcus listened intently, noting how Ryan exaggerated details to paint himself as untouchable. As the night wore on, Marcus waited for the right moment to strike. When Ryan excused himself to use the restroom, Marcus followed discreetly. Inside the narrow hallway leading to the restrooms, Marcus caught up to Ryan just as he stepped out of the stall. Ryan looked startled, recognizing Marcus immediately from his earlier visits to the bar. "What do you want?" Ryan demanded, his tone defensive. Marcus held up his hands in mock surrender. "Relax, man. I'm not here to cause trouble. His voice was calm, almost friendly, which only seemed to unnerve Ryan further. Then why are you following me? Ryan asked, narrowing his eyes. I just wanted to talk, Marcus replied evenly. You've been getting a lot of attention lately. Must be tough. Ryan stiffened, his face reddening with anger. Are you trying to threaten me? Because let me tell you, no threats, Marcus interrupted smoothly. Just saying, it seems like someone's gunning for you. Anonymous tips, weird noises at your place, even that letter from Internal Affairs. Feels like someone's watching your every move. Ryan's jaw tightened. How do you know about that? Marcus shrugged nonchalantly. Word gets around, people talk, especially when they think someone's dirty. I'm not dirty, Ryan barked, taking a step forward. This is all a setup. Maybe, Marcus said, leaning against the wall casually. Or maybe it's karma catching up to you. You ever stop to think about that? Ryan clenched his fists, clearly struggling to keep his temper in check. Who the hell are you? Why are you messing with me? I'm nobody, Marcus answered simply. Just someone who thinks justice should mean something. And right now it doesn't, not for people like my wife. The mention of Maya struck a nerve. Ryan's expression shifted from anger to unease. Your wife? That's right, Marcus said, his tone hardening slightly. Maya Johnson. Ring any bells? Recognition flashed across Ryan's face, followed quickly by panic. Look, whatever happened that night, it was nothing personal. She shouldn't have resisted, that's all. Marcus took a step closer, his gaze piercing. Nothing personal? You shoved a pregnant woman to the ground, Ryan, in front of witnesses, on camera, and now everyone knows exactly who you are. Ryan swallowed nervously, glancing toward the door as if considering making a run for it. What do you want from me? For starters, Marcus said, lowering his voice, I want you to resign, publicly apologize to Maya, admit what you did wrong. Do that and maybe I'll leave you alone. And if I don't? Ryan shot back, though his voice lacked conviction. Marcus smiled faintly, a cold edge to his expression. Let's just say things could get worse. Much worse. With that, Marcus walked away, leaving Ryan standing frozen in the hallway. For a long moment, Ryan didn't move, his mind racing with possibilities. Was this guy bluffing? Or did he really have enough dirt to ruin Ryan's career, and possibly his freedom? Over the next few days, Ryan became increasingly erratic. He called in sick to work, claiming he needed time to clear his head. Instead, he stayed holed up in his apartment, jumping at every sound and scrutinizing every shadow. His phone rang constantly, though most calls went unanswered. Messages piled up from superiors asking for updates on the investigation, friends wondering if he was okay, and anonymous callers delivering vague threats. One such message stood out more than the others. A robotic voice informed Ryan that evidence of his misconduct had been sent to multiple news outlets and government agencies. The recording ended with a chilling warning. Tick-tock, Officer Carter. That was the final straw. Ryan's paranoia reached a fever pitch. He began packing bags, convinced he needed to flee before it was too late. But where could he go? Who could he trust? Every option felt like walking into a trap. Unbeknownst to Ryan, Marcus watched it all unfold with quiet satisfaction. The psychological pressure was working exactly as planned. Now came the hardest part, forcing Ryan to face the consequences of his actions. On a chilly evening, Marcus sent a text message to Ryan's phone, a single line instructing him to meet at an abandoned warehouse on the outskirts of town. The message promised proof of corruption within the department, something Ryan desperately needed to clear his name. Desperation clouded Ryan's judgment, and despite his instinct screaming danger, he agreed to go. As Ryan drove to the location, his hands gripped the steering wheel tightly. His heart pounded in his chest, torn between hope and fear. When he arrived at the warehouse, the building loomed dark and foreboding under the pale moonlight. Steeling himself, Ryan stepped inside. The interior was eerily silent, the air thick with dust and decay. Shadows danced along the walls as Ryan moved cautiously through the space. Suddenly, a figure emerged from the darkness. It was Marcus. "You came," Marcus said, his voice steady and calm. "What is this?" Ryan demanded, trying to mask his fear with bravado. "Where's the proof?" Marcus crossed his arms, studying Ryan carefully. "There is no proof of corruption. Not here anyway. But I do have something else." Ryan frowned, confusion mixing with suspicion. "What are you talking about?" Without another word, Marcus pulled out a tablet and pressed play on a video file. The screen lit up, showing clips compiled from various sources: surveillance footage of Ryan's aggressive behavior, audio recordings of his boasts at the bar, witness testimonies detailing past incidents of misconduct. Each piece of evidence painted a damning portrait of Ryan as a reckless, abusive officer, undeserving of his badge. Ryan stared at the screen, his face pale with shock. This isn't real," he stammered. "You can't prove any of this." "Oh, I can," Marcus countered coolly. "And I will, if you don't do exactly what I say." Ryan backed away, shaking his head. "You can't blackmail me. I'll fight this." Marcus stepped closer, his presence commanding. "Go ahead, fight it. But remember, I've got connections you can't even imagine. By the time you realize how deep this goes, it'll be too late. Your career, your reputation, they'll be gone. Forever." For a long moment, Ryan said nothing, his shoulders slumping in defeat. The weight of Marcus's words crushed him, leaving him powerless. Finally, he nodded reluctantly. "Fine. What do you want?" "Resign tomorrow," Marcus instructed firmly. "Issue a public apology to Maya. Take full responsibility for what you did. If you don't, every bit of this evidence goes public, understand?" Ryan hesitated, then nodded again. "I understand." Satisfied, Marcus turned and walked away, leaving Ryan alone in the cavernous warehouse. As he stepped outside into the cool night air, Marcus allowed himself a small smile. Justice wasn't always served in courtrooms or headlines. It was sometimes found in moments like these, where accountability forced change. Back home, Marcus shared the outcome with Maya, careful to reassure her that no violence had been involved. Though relieved, she couldn't help but feel a pang of sadness. "Do you think he'll actually change?" she asked quietly. Marcus sighed, sitting beside her. "Probably not. But he'll never forget this, and neither will anyone else who hears about it." Together they sat in silence, reflecting on the journey they'd been through. For now, the battle was won. But the war for true justice was far from over. The next morning, Ryan Carter sat in his small apartment, staring blankly at the wall. His hands trembled as he clutched a cup of coffee that had long gone cold. The events of the previous night replayed over and over in his mind like a broken record. He could still see Marcus's calm, unyielding expression as he laid out the evidence against him. It felt surreal, almost like a nightmare, but deep down, Ryan knew it was all too real. He glanced at the clock on the wall. In just a few hours, he would have to face the world again. This time not as the tough, untouchable cop he had always pretended to be, but as a man cornered, exposed, and stripped of his power. The thought made his stomach churn. Resigning from the force wasn't something he ever imagined doing. For years, being a police officer had been more than just a job. It had been his identity, his shield against the world. Without it, who was he? Ryan tried to convince himself there was still a way out. Maybe he could deny everything, call Marcus's bluff, or even fight back legally. But every time he considered these options, doubt crept in. Marcus had been clear. If Ryan didn't comply, the evidence would go public, and judging by what he'd seen last night, there was enough dirt to bury him completely. With a heavy sigh, Ryan opened his laptop and typed out his resignation letter. Each word felt like a knife twisting in his chest. After careful consideration, he wrote, struggling to keep his tone professional, "I have decided to step down from my position as an officer with immediate effect." He hesitated before adding a vague line about wanting to pursue other opportunities. Even now, he couldn't bring himself to admit the truth. When the letter was finished, Ryan printed it and placed it in an envelope. Then he drafted a brief apology addressed to Maya Johnson. Writing those words was perhaps the hardest part. "I deeply regret my actions on the evening of date," he began, his fingers hovering uncertainly over the keyboard. "What I did was wrong, and I take full responsibility for the harm I caused." It sounded hollow, insincere even to his own ears, but he didn't know how else to phrase it. After saving the document, he forwarded it to his superior officer with instructions to release it publicly. By mid-morning, Ryan arrived at the precinct, his steps slow and reluctant. The familiar hum of activity inside, the ringing phones, the chatter of colleagues, the clatter of keyboards, felt foreign now. As he walked toward his captain's office, heads turned, whispers rippling through the room. Everyone had heard about the incident with Maya by now, and rumors of an impending investigation swirled like wildfire. Ryan avoided eye contact, focusing, instead, on the floor ahead of him. Inside the office, Captain Lewis looked up from his desk, surprise flickering across his face. "Ryan, what are you doing here?" "I'm resigning," Ryan said flatly, placing the envelope on the desk. His voice cracked slightly, betraying the tension coiled within him. Captain Lewis frowned, leaning forward. "Resigning? Why? You haven't even given us a chance to address the allegations." "There's no point," Ryan muttered, avoiding the older man's gaze. "It's done." Before the captain could respond, Ryan turned and left the office, ignoring the curious stares of his co-workers. Outside, the air felt unusually cold as he climbed into his car. For a moment, he simply sat there, gripping the steering wheel tightly, unsure of where to go or what to do next. Everything he had worked for, everything he had believed in was slipping through his fingers, and there was nothing he could do to stop it. Meanwhile, Marcus Johnson watched the news unfold from the comfort of his living room. Maya sat beside him, her expression a mix of relief and apprehension. They had both seen Ryan's resignation announcement earlier that day, followed by his public apology. While some people praised the move as a step toward accountability, others dismissed it as forced and meaningless. Either way, the message was clear. Ryan Carter's days of wielding unchecked authority were over. "You did it," Maya said softly, breaking the silence. Her voice carried a note of awe, though her eyes remained cautious. "You actually made him quit." Marcus nodded, his expression unreadable. "Yeah, I did. But how do you feel about it?" she asked, searching his face for answers. "Is this really justice?" Marcus hesitated, considering the question. "Justice isn't perfect," he admitted after a pause. "What happened won't undo the pain he caused you, or anyone else he hurt, but it sends a message. People like him can't hide behind their badges anymore, not without consequences." Maya nodded slowly, absorbing his words. She wanted to believe him, to trust that this victory meant something bigger than just revenge. Still, a part of her worried about the toll it might take on Marcus. Holding on to anger for so long couldn't be healthy, could it? As if sensing her concern, Marcus reached over and took her hand in his. "This isn't about hatred," he said gently. "It's about balance, about making sure no one gets away with treating others like they're less than human." Maya squeezed his hand, offering a small smile. "Just promise me one thing. Anything. That we don't let this define us," she said firmly. "We've got bigger things to focus on now, like our family." Marcus smiled back, feeling a warmth spread through him, despite everything they'd been through. Deal. Later that afternoon, Ryan returned home, his mind a chaotic swirl of emotions. The weight of his decision pressed down on him, suffocating and relentless. He poured himself a drink, hoping it would dull the sharp edges of guilt and shame gnawing at him. But alcohol did little to ease the storm brewing inside. As he sat alone in his dimly lit living room, Ryan found himself scrolling through social media. Predictably, his resignation and apology dominated the conversation online. Some commenters celebrated his downfall, calling it long overdue. Others questioned whether his apology was genuine or merely a tactic to save face. A few defended him, blaming the situation on cancel culture and excessive scrutiny of law enforcement. But one comment caught Ryan's attention more than the rest. It was from Lisa, the neighbor who had filmed the altercation with Maya. Her post read, "Apologies mean nothing unless they lead to real change. Actions speak louder than words." Ryan stared at the screen, her words sinking in like a stone, dropped into water. Change. Was that even possible for someone like him? Could he truly become a better person? Or was he destined to remain trapped in the cycle of fear and resentment that had defined his life thus far? For the first time in weeks, Ryan allowed himself to reflect, not just on what had happened, but on why. He thought about his upbringing, his father's strict expectations, and the pressure to prove himself as a man. He remembered the countless times he'd been told that authority demanded respect, that weakness was unacceptable. Had those beliefs shaped him into the person he'd become? Into someone capable of hurting an innocent woman simply because she challenged his sense of control? The realization hit him like a punch to the gut. Maybe Marcus was right. Maybe karma had finally caught up to him. But if that was true, then what came next? Did he deserve redemption? Or was he beyond saving? As night fell, Ryan made a quiet decision. He couldn't undo the past, but perhaps he could start making amends. Picking up his phone, he scrolled through his contacts until he found Captain Lewis's number. With trembling fingers, he typed out a text. "If there's any way I can help reform the department, let me know. I owe it to everyone I failed." It wasn't much, but it was a beginning. Across town, Marcus and Maya prepared for bed, the events of the day fading into the background. As they lay side by side, Marcus turned to Maya and asked, "Do you think he'll change?" Maya thought, for a moment before answering. Maybe, maybe not. But either way, we've done our part. Now it's up to him. Marcus nodded, pulling her closer. Yeah, up to him. And with that, they drifted off to sleep, hopeful that their actions had planted seeds of change. Not just for Ryan, but for the community they loved. Justice, they realized, wasn't just about punishment. It was about creating space for growth, healing, and hope. The weeks following Ryan Carter's resignation passed quickly, though the ripple effects of his actions, and Marcus Johnson's intervention, continued to shape the lives of everyone involved. The community of Maplewood buzzed with conversations about accountability, reform, and what true justice looked like. For some, Ryan's public apology signaled progress. For others, it was merely a start, a reminder that systemic issues couldn't be solved by one man's downfall. Ryan himself retreated from public life almost entirely. After submitting his resignation, he avoided social gatherings, stopped going to the bar where he'd once been a regular, and spent most of his days in solitude. At first, this isolation felt unbearable. He wrestled with guilt and shame, replaying every moment of his encounter with Maya in his mind. But as time went on, something unexpected began to happen. Reflection turned into resolve. One morning, Ryan woke up earlier than usual, feeling restless. He decided to take a walk around the neighborhood, a place he hadn't ventured into much since the incident. As he strolled along the quiet streets, he noticed small details he'd overlooked before. Children playing in yards, neighbors chatting over fences, flowers blooming in carefully tended gardens. It struck him how vibrant and alive the community seemed, even after everything that had happened. His thoughts drifted back to Lisa's comment on social media, the one about apologies meaning nothing without action. She was right, he realized. Words alone wouldn't fix what he'd broken. If he truly wanted to make amends, he needed to do more than just step aside. He needed to contribute to healing the wounds he'd helped create. That afternoon, Ryan reached out to a local nonprofit organization focused on police reform and community outreach. Their mission statement resonated deeply with him. Building trust between law enforcement and the communities they serve. When he called them, his voice trembled slightly as he introduced himself. "I'm not sure if you're aware of who I am," Ryan began hesitantly. but I recently resigned from the force after an incident involving misconduct. I want to help, to learn, to make things better if I can." There was a pause on the other end of the line before the woman responded warmly. "We appreciate your willingness to reach out, Mr. Carter. Change starts with people willing to listen and grow. Why don't we meet tomorrow to discuss how you might get involved?" Ryan agreed, hanging up the phone with a mix of nerves and hope. For the first time in months, he felt like he had purpose again, not as a figure of authority, but as someone seeking redemption. Meanwhile, Marcus and Maya focused on rebuilding their lives together. Though the initial storm had settled, its impact lingered. Maya still experienced moments of anxiety when she saw police cars or heard sirens, reminders of the night she'd been hurt. But Marcus remained steadfast by her side, offering comfort and reassurance whenever she needed it. Their evenings became a time of connection and reflection. They talked about the future, the baby they were expecting, the kind of world they hoped to raise their child in, and the role they wanted to play in shaping that world. One evening, as they sat together on the couch, Maya turned to Marcus with a thoughtful expression. "What do you think happens next?" she asked. "For us, I mean. For everyone." Marcus considered the question carefully before answering. "I think we keep moving forward. We've shown people that standing up for what's right matters. Now it's up to all of us to build on that momentum." Maya nodded, her lips curving into a soft smile. "You know, maybe this wasn't just about teaching Ryan a lesson. Maybe it was also about showing ourselves and others that change is possible." Marcus smiled back, reaching for her hand. "Yeah, and maybe that's the real victory." Inspired by this conversation, the couple decided to channel their energy into activism. They joined local groups advocating for police accountability and racial justice, attending meetings, organizing events, and sharing their story whenever it could inspire others. Slowly but surely, they transformed their pain into purpose, turning tragedy into an opportunity for growth. As summer approached, Maplewood hosted its annual Unity Day celebration, a festival designed to bring residents together across cultural and socio-economic divides. This year, however, the event carried added significance. Community leaders seized the occasion to highlight recent efforts toward reform and reconciliation, inviting speakers who had championed these causes. Among the attendees was Ryan Carter, standing awkwardly at the edge of the crowd. He had volunteered to assist with setting up booths and directing traffic, eager to contribute in whatever small way he could. Though many people recognized him, their reactions varied. Some glared or whispered behind cupped hands, while others offered polite nods or brief smiles. To Ryan, each interaction felt like a test, a chance to prove he was serious about changing. Adisau. One point during the festivities, Maya and Marcus spotted him helping an elderly woman carry her bags to her car. They exchanged a glance, surprised by the sight. Later, as they walked past him, Marcus paused briefly. "You're here," Marcus said simply, his tone neutral. Ryan looked up, startled. "Yeah, trying to help if I can." Marcus studied him for a moment before nodding. "Good. Keep trying." With that, he and Maya continued walking, leaving Ryan standing there, a flicker of gratitude crossing his face. It wasn't forgiveness, not yet, but it was acknowledgement, and for now that was enough. By the end of Unity Day, the atmosphere in Maplewood felt lighter, as though a weight had been lifted. Conversations flowed freely between strangers, laughter echoed through the park, and music filled the air. For the first time in a long time, the community seemed united, not because everyone agreed, but because they were committed to understanding one another. That evening, as fireworks lit up the sky, Marcus and Maya stood side by side, holding hands. Their hearts swelled with hope as they watched sparks of color dance overhead. Behind them, the faint sound of children giggling and families chatting created a soundtrack of togetherness. "It's beautiful," Maya murmured, leaning her head against Marcus's shoulder. "Yeah," Marcus replied, squeezing her hand gently. "It is." In that moment, surrounded by the warmth of community and the promise of a brighter future, they allowed themselves to believe that true justice wasn't just about punishing wrongdoing. It was about fostering compassion, resilience, and unity. And though challenges undoubtedly lay ahead, they faced them with courage, knowing they weren't alone. Farther away, Ryan watched the fireworks too, standing quietly on the outskirts of the crowd. He didn't join in the celebrations, but he felt a sense of belonging nonetheless. For the first time in years, he understood what it meant to be part of something greater than himself. It was humbling, exhilarating, and terrifying all at once. But above all, it was hopeful. Change, he realized, wasn't easy. It required effort, vulnerability, and a willingness to confront uncomfortable truths. But as long as people kept striving for it together, they could create a world where justice wasn't just a dream but a reality worth fighting for.